afternoon, calling the December 2nd Honolulu Police Commission meeting to order. Today is, we're here live at the Honolulu Police Department, Alapai Station. We have Commissioners Olivado, Vice Chair Gibson, Commissioners Okinaga, Chin, Broderick, and Perry joining us here in person along with HPC staff. Also joining us in person is Corporation Counsel Dwayne Pang. Joining us via WebEx, we have Chief Ballard and Deputy Chief McCarthy. Chief Ballard, anyone else joining you?
Deputy Chief Takasaki Young, legal advisor, senior legal advisor Lynn Uema, Michelle Yu, PIO, and Sarah Yoro, PIO.
Thank you very much.
And people online or whatever. We're on the ACs.
Yeah, Dad. Three? Three of them. Or two of them. Three.
Thank you. We'll note their presence. Thank you very much. Pursuant to 16th Supplementary Proclamation issued by Governor Ige on November 16, 2020, and also Mayor Kirk Caldwell's November 20, 2020 proclamation, we are in compliance with social distancing and are complying with no public testimony based on social distancing requirements. No public testimony live, however, we are accommodating public testimony via telephone and also by written submission. And before we move on, we would like to confirm we have quorum. Corporation Counsel.
Yes, Madam Chair, you have quorum.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to public testimony. And as instructed on our agenda, testimony will be allowed via telephone upon us contacting those that have initiated contact. So at this time, I'll ask HPC staff to initiate a call to Mr. Glenn Nagao. Hello, may I speak to Mr. Nagao?
This is him.
Hi, Mr. Nagao. My name is Shannon Olivado. I'm calling from the Honolulu Police Commission. We are here at the Honolulu Police Department HPC meeting and would like to ask if you would like to deliver your public testimony at this time.
Yes, can you hear me fine?
Yes, if you could just continue to speak loudly, that would be very helpful.
Okay, thank you. Hello, Commissioner, Chief, and other attendees. In reviewing prior budgets, the legal fees the Commission approved on behalf of officers involved in criminal and/or civil suits are labeled under the broad provision for judgments, settlements, and losses. Given that at the end of the day, taxpayers foot the bill for officer misconduct, the Commission advised City Council to have a separate category for HPD-specific items so that the public can have a clear understanding of how much the MARC funds are being allocated to these settlements and fees. And my second question is, additionally, in a Civil B 2019 reports report, stated that youth reports incidents increased by greater than 10% year over year. Does the Commission plan on placing a cap towards settlement and lawsuit fees, or are taxpayers required to indefinitely split this bill without any HPD accountability? That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nagao. I'm asking other commissioners if they have questions for you. Thank you, Commissioner Chin.
Mr. Nagao, on your first request, can you say that one more time? Like, is it that you're trying to ask for what's just happened? No, is it that you're trying to ask for a breakdown between like the settlements and then the legal fees that are paid, or is it a different kind of breakdown?
Sure. Yeah, just an understanding of where those funds are going in terms of officer misconduct involved, just so that as a taxpayer I can see where that's going.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Nagao.
Any other questions from other commissioners? Mr. Nagao, we just wanted to thank you for your testimony. And if you would like to submit something in writing, just so we have it for the record, any submissions in writing will be included in our minutes, and it helps for us to keep track of the comments that have come in with respect to your two comments on the legal fees for any civil suits. And I kind of understood it as to ensuring that you know it's on the agenda as well, so the public knows when these settlements are coming up. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then your second question or comment with respect to the use of force and whether the taxpayers will be, in your words, footing the bill for these lack of responses. So if you would be willing to put that in writing, that would be helpful to us.
Okay. I'll do that.
Thank you. If no further questions, that ends your public testimony. Thank you very much. We now have a second public testifier, Ms. Nancy Manali Leonardo, who will be contacted via phone now.
Hello,
Hello, may I speak to Ms. Manali Leonardo?
this is she.
Hi, my name is Shannon Olivado. I'm calling from the Honolulu Police Commission meeting. If it's okay with you to provide your public testimony at this time?
Okay, oh gosh, I didn't know you were calling this time.
Sorry, we apologize. Is it not a good time for you?
Can someone else go next?
Sorry, you're the
Sure.
only other public testifier. We just had one other person. Did you want some time, like maybe 2 minutes to gather your thoughts?
Sure.
Okay, we'll give you 2 minutes. If you just want to hold on to the line, I'm going to go over some other written testimony that we received. Is that okay?
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, great. For the commissioner's information, you have copies of written testimony submitted by email, which I believe Erin distributed to all of us. In reviewing 6 of the submitted testimonies, they all include 8 items which suggest, and I'll summarize, but I would like everyone to be able to review them after this meeting with respect to some steps that the testifiers urge us to do our part in keeping our community safe from police brutality and abuse of power, increasing transparency and holding law enforcement accountable. They note 8 points with respect to HPD arrest records, and asking that they clearly disaggregate data relating to marginalized communities. Number 2, call for Chief Ballard to develop measures to address racial and wealth disparities among arrests. Number 3, evaluate Chief Ballard's performance in her 2020 annual review based in part on her progress in tackling racial disparities. Number 4, immediately implement conflict of interest policies in the Police Commission rules and continue in strongly urging HPD to implement them in their rules. Number 5, publish officer misconduct names and data on your website. Number 6, call for measures to ensure officers disciplined for misconduct do not get hired in other Hawaii jurisdictions. Number 7, publish data on police budget and spending on your website, itemizing CARES Act funding going to overtime and payroll expenses. And number 8, immediately call for an end to police having access to rubber bullets, flashbangs, beanbag rounds, stun grenades, tear gas, LRADs, and other weapons of war. So I just wanted to bring that to the Commission's attention with respect to all 6 noting those 8 points. However, there was one testimony that stood out from a Melissa Martinez who expressed dissatisfaction with how she was treated upon visiting the police station to fill out paperwork on her background check. We had reached out to Ms. Martinez to see if she wanted to file a formal complaint with respect to her involvement in asking that she be checked off as a non-white when she was asked to fill out paperwork. I guess her interaction with the officers was indicating that she may be white, but in her response, she wanted Latino or Latina checked off. So that was the only noted difference in all 6 written testimonies that we received. I don't know if anyone has any questions or any responses.
Chair Olivado, I guess my question really is to all the commissioners. When we receive these types of letters, what is the process? I mean, what happens to these letters and the requests that they're making?
Usually, and anyone, I'll just respond and I think Erin can add to it. Usually we acknowledge every, I guess, letter that we receive, just acknowledging them and noting that it will be brought to the commissioner's attention. With respect to responding individually to each of their requests, we have not necessarily identified a way to respond to them. But for these in particular, I was gonna ask if we could include anything that relates to Chief's evaluation in her evaluation folder. So we're able to kind of take a look at each of these recommendations or, you know, thoughts that the public may have with respect to going forward in the department. But if you have other suggestions on how we can
No,
respond.
I guess I just wanna, these folks have taken the time to write to us, which is actually pretty unusual. Most people don't do that. And they're very thoughtful. Some of the things they're asking for, I think, are not realistic. But others, I think, are very, very thoughtful and very productive recommendations. And so I guess my concern is that once we acknowledge receipt to the person that wrote it, nothing happens. There's no analysis that we make or the department makes. I don't know whether that's the case or not. That's what I'm trying to find out.
I think the answer is that it's up to us to act upon it, having had it brought to our attention. It's then incumbent upon us, if we feel that they've raised good points or they've put forward issues, perhaps to ask the chief for some response or to raise the issue at a separate occasion during the testimony.
Yeah, and some of the things are FYI, and some of them are, actionable items that in the past we have acted on. It really depends on what it is.
Okay. I mean, there are a number of actionable items here.
Yeah.
What's going to happen to those?
Right. So I think, we all need to talk about this and see what we want to do about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's up to us.
Okay. And when do we have that discussion?
So because if we include these in the chief's evaluation, we'll be able to use this as part of our evaluation of the chief and also in how we request maybe some follow-up items on, some of the suggestions from the public. And what we've started was anything that references, and Chief, FYI for you too, is anything that referenced chief's evaluation, we've been putting it in a folder. We're gonna be indexing it by name, date of receipt, and just being able to reference that when we go back to the evaluation process.
So is it your thinking that all 8 of these would somehow fall or relate to the chief's evaluation?
Not necessarily. I think there's some that do or some that may touch upon some of her the areas that we review the chief on. So I think it can fit in various I guess the different action items that she's expected to perform on.
Yeah, but something like publish office and misconduct names on the HPC website doesn't seem to be an issue for the chief.
Yeah, that's actually captured in a report to the legislature at the end of the year. Yeah, so that's already something that's available. And the call for measures to ensure officers disciplined for misconduct do not get hired in other toy jurisdiction. That's something that's more of a policy call, but still something we can bring up.
Yeah, I just have it's a concern, might be a little strong. I just want to make sure that when folks write letters that we take them seriously and give them the attention that they deserve.
And I concur with that. I would also note that the testimony is remarkably duplicative, so you know that it's a foreign testimony coming. And one of the CCs on one of them, including the one from Ms. Martinez, who did identify a specific situation that she was wanting to draw to our attention. CC Smart Justice at ACLUHawaii.org. So I was looking at that. It's definitely a, you know, an initiative of the ACLU. So to the extent that, you know, you keep, I personally would wish that people who sent in testimony like this would identify, like Ms. Martinez, the specific facts that, you know, led them to come to this position, because otherwise it's form testimony that looks exactly the same. Some of it might be something that we might want to ask the chief to respond to. Some of it is for us to consider, like you've identified to me as proper, which is the evaluation. What should be included in the chief's evaluation? But definitely, the administration has the facts to respond to. Usually, the vast majority of the complaints are if they're about specific fact situation. Usually, it's for the administration to respond to. We don't have information.
Thank you. Okay, if no further discussion with respect to the written testimony, we'll go back to Ms. Manali Leonardo. Are you still with us?
I am, yes I am.
Great, thank you. Sorry, that was a little bit more than 2 minutes, but we're ready for you now if you're okay.
Yes, that's fine. I just wanted to say, I wanted to advocate for trying to de-escalate the abusive behavior when the mentally ill are arrested. So in other words, if there's any way of contacting family members, they know the history of the mentally ill. I would also encourage the police officers to explain procedures that are going to encourage the mentally ill. You know, keep it low and keep it quiet as much as possible. You know, if they have weapons, that's a whole different story. But if they don't, you know, try to de-escalate the behavior. And also on regards to officers that have histories of abuse with arresting patients or people of the public, I strongly encourage that their records be viewed into the sunshine so we can, you know, look at these officers, see if they can be saved, re-educated. But it's very important that we don't have abusive officers on the force. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Manali Leonardo. Any questions by commissioners? Thank you so much for your testimony, Ms. Manali Leonardo. As we offered the prior testifier, if you'd like to submit your testimony in writing as well, it will help us with our referring to your suggestions and comments.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care. Thank you, everyone. If no further discussion on public testimony, moving on to Chief of Police report. Hi, Chief Ballard.
Hi, morning or afternoon. The first thing is that yesterday we had the swearing in for Deputy Chief Takasaki Young. So he'll be with us hopefully for a long time, or for a few years anyway.
Congratulations.
And then also too, we received the notice from the Ethics Commission regarding Christmas gifts, you know, the annual reminder. So we'll be sending out a notice to remind the officers about the acceptance of gifts during this Christmas season. I guess other than that, I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Chief McCarthy for the presentation on case clearances.
You ready for that? I'll share the PowerPoint.
Thank you.
Can you guys see the PowerPoint?
Yes, we
Yes.
can.
Good. That's just an introductory slide. Okay, reporting for clearance rates. 2020, and the next slide tells it. UCR, this is the last year we're going to use the UCR, the Uniform Crime Report. It's an offense-based reporting system that only captures the 7 Part 1 cases. They're listed there: murder, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, burglary, larceny, theft, motor vehicle theft, and arson. Those are the only numbers that are reported to the FBI, and they're numbers that are, you've got to remember, these are statistics, so they're a point in time. When we report it, that's what it is at that time. The numbers do change as we move forward, but it's never reported. 2020, 2019 numbers, once they're reported, they're reported. You never see them go back and correct the numbers. Starting in 2021, which we're already doing, but starting 2021, it'll be standardized across the US that they have to report on the National Incident-Based Reporting System, the NIBRS. That's an incident-based reporting system that collects information based on each incident instead of each offense. This one will capture more than 50 crimes divided into Group A and Group B offenses. It'll provide for more detail in the reporting system. Moving on to the next slide, crime reporting. Remember, it's all about definitions when we do this. A good example is motor vehicle theft. Motor vehicle theft is defined in the UCR and NIBRS, says that it's the theft or attempted theft of motor vehicles. Motor vehicles being described as anything that rides on land and not on rail. Well, we don't have a motor vehicle theft law in Hawaii. What we use is the unauthorized control of a propelled vehicle. When your car is stolen, the person who stole it didn't have your permission and wasn't authorized to take the vehicle, so we use that law. And there's problems in definitions in reporting it. We report it as a motor vehicle theft, but then closing it becomes an issue because we're not necessarily catching a guy that stole the car. We're catching a guy who's in possession of the car at the time. NIBRS will allow us to do a little bit more in the closing in that respect. The old UCR never allowed for something like that. So keep that in mind, please. The newer standardized reporting system, like I said, done under the NIBRS, it'll allow us to collect information based on incidents. So it'll tell you that we had more multiple crime scenes, more multiple murders, more multiple thefts, whatever the case might be. In the old way, say a hotel had 5 burglaries, you made 5 burglaries. In the new system with NIBRS, you pull one report with 5 suffix numbers, and it's an incident-based system. Moving on to the next slide. Again, cases can only be cleared under 2 circumstances, and this applies to both UCR and NIBRS. In the first example, it has to be by arrest. The offender must be identified. You must be able to locate the offender. In other words, he's got to have a home address. In the case of people that are homeless, we have to know where we can locate them, because the rationale is that they have to be able to be located in order to be arrested. And that leads me to the third phase. You must have probable cause for an arrest. Now, there's a second way to clear cases, and by exceptional means. You have to have all of the 3 examples up on top, but for some reason, beyond law enforcement's control, we're prohibited from making an arrest, charging, or prosecuting the offender. That could mean that the offender passed away, he's dead, deceased. It could mean that the victim does not want to cooperate. It could mean that the prosecution has declined the case, even though we had all of the elements. They choose to prosecute for some reason, or decline or pass on. Next slide, the reporting, and I said this in the beginning, the reported clearing rates are simply a snapshot in time. We have a date that we have to report by. For example, the closure rates reported for the year 2017 will never change once it's reported. For perpetuity, forever and ever, it's the same number. Even though those numbers will change in our record books. For example, cases in December, if we get an auto theft, a burglary, a theft, a murder, but we don't get the elements needed to clear that case until January or February, we report that year, and it's an open case. There's no closure, but the closure may appear in the next year, closing that case out. NIBRS is dynamic and always changing. What we run today in a computer for the NIBRS reports, and if we run it a few months from now, the numbers will change. The numbers are reported to the FBI every 6 months in this area. And again, remember that they're captured on an incident-based, not an offense-based, so it'll show more generalities but have more detail to the reporting of itself. Again, it captures more than 50 crimes, so we're going to see a lot more crimes reported, and closures. And just to give you an example, I hope you can read this. This is data from the UCR submitted to the Hawaii Attorney Generals for 2018 and 2019 in red. That's based on the UCR submission. And I only took the murder just to keep it simple. So you see 25 murders reported and 15 cleared in 2018. If you look to the right of that in green, This is how NIBRs would be reported. And you see the number of offenses dropped from 25 to 16. The reason for that being is it counts, again, it's incident-based, and you don't have to report justifiable homicides. That's not considered a murder under NIBRs, so the numbers will drop and you see the clearance rate rise. Another thing with the delay of, especially in the larger cases, maybe murder or rape, sometimes robbery, cases will be sent to the prosecutor, and the prosecutor will take time to review the case before making a decision one way or the other. In that case, the cases might not get cleared in that calendar year, so again, you show a lower clearance rate. And again, for just to look at 2019, you see a drop again from offenses 26 to 17, and the clearances drop from 18 to 15. Again, it's all about definitions. The justifiable homicide, how we clear the cases, it's all defined. It's been defined, and this has been talked about and changed since I've been a detective in the early 90s. So I don't understand it fully. I still have to refer back to the book a lot of times. And I spent many years as a detective, then as a lieutenant. So it's something we're struggling with, but we're relooking our numbers. Under NIBRs, we have a much better closure rate or clearance rate than we have on the UCR because of again, the definitions allow us to close it. And it's not a matter of playing with definitions. The reality is we are arresting people for these offenses like the motor vehicle theft I told you about. We're arresting people in stolen vehicles, but UCR does not allow us to go back and clear it because that's not the person that stole a car necessarily, whereas NIBRs will allow us to close it because they're in possession of the stolen property. Any questions?
I have a question, Chief.
Yes, sir.
If a crime is committed in 2018, solved in 2019, under NIBRs, is it a credit to 18 or a plus up for 19?
Not necessarily. Like I said, once it's reported, the numbers are reported. That's it. It's a snapshot in time. Some of the cases will show the closing for the previous year, but it's not necessarily will show up in the following year's closing or clearance.
And the previous year when it happened, it would not get adjusted?
No, it doesn't get adjusted. Once it's reported, it's reported. That's it. That the FBI especially, once we give them the numbers, that's it. It's done. They don't do anything with it. They post it, and that's. If you go back and look at 2001, the numbers are the same year after year after year. It doesn't change. Even though on our record books, it'll change because we may have made the arrest, we may have prosecuted the case, give it over to the prosecutors. It might even be a conviction, but the number would not change. In NIBRs, it's a little different. The state has agreed to be the clearinghouse for it. So the 4 counties, we actually send our information over to the Attorney General, who in turn collects it and turns it over to the FBI.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Broderick has a question.
Chief Bauer, a few meetings back, you told us that the case closing numbers were wrong that Civil Beat had reported. I guess they said they had gotten their data from the AG's office and numbers that HPD had given to the FBI. Anyway, you said the numbers were wrong. Will you be providing the correct numbers to us?
We have the correct numbers. I don't have them right now.
But you'll be providing them to us?
Yeah, we can.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
Sure.
Commissioner Chin.
Deputy Chief, thanks a lot for your presentation. And I think it's fair to say that this has been a long time coming. I think for the longest time, going back to when I was a prosecutor 10 years ago, it's always been, this has always been a concern is that HPD, for whatever equipment reasons or technological reasons or budget reasons, it was required to follow the UCR data system. And so to finally get it upgraded to where you're going to be able to enter information on the NIBRs data system, that seems to me like a really big step forward in terms of more accurate reporting of your clearance rates. Does that sound right?
That's true, but what we've been doing is reporting the UCR as we were required. We've actually been collecting the NIBRs data for a couple of years now. So that's why I could show you the chart with both numbers, and you see the adjustments that are made because of the definitions that are used in the reporting and clearances.
Right.
So,
So actually, so that's great. I'm sorry to interrupt.
no, not at all. I was just gonna say, as of 2020, this is last year, we report UCR. As of 2021, it'll be all NIBRs. And the AGs will be reporting it as a collective number for the state of Hawaii.
And I think that's going to be good because so not only is it that HPD has the technological ability to be able to handle the incident-based reporting and the suffixes and things like that, but then also it sounds to me like the Attorney General's office is also going to be able to accept NIBR's reporting and to be able to report it that way. Is that going to be the way for all 4 counties?
Yes. The AG's office is based with us, and all 4 counties will be reporting NIBRs as of 2021 to the AGs, who in turn reports to the FBI. And I'm pretty sure, my understanding, it's done every 6 months. So I think in the middle of the year, it gets reported and posted, and then again at the end or beginning of the year after it's been posted and given to them. I do want you to know as well, we did meet yesterday, and we are refining our process. We're trying to make our computer system so we have more standardized reporting and collection of data by our investigative units, especially when it comes to clearance rates. So we're adjusting the system. We're working a lot behind the scenes to try and leverage the data that we have so that we can use it better and report it better.
How about the rest of the country? Like, will the rest of the country? And I realize that's a really big question, but like that's the hard thing about putting together all this data is that different departments were doing different systems, so it's hard to compare apples to oranges when you're looking at one city versus a different city.
You're exactly
so
right.
is that changing? Is that changing nationwide, or is that? Yeah.
NIBRs is the standard nationwide effective 2021. But remember I said it's all about definition. So some cities, if they don't have a crime that fits that, any one of those part 1 crimes, the 7 crimes I enumerated, they just didn't report it. So their numbers look really good. And you know, just from the size of the city, it can't be that good, but that's what they reported. And the FBI was just taking these numbers and publishing them. There was no verification with NIBRs. The state attorney general is going to make sure it's in the NIBRs, fits the NIBRs categories, and it gets onto the FBI for reporting.
Okay. Well, I mean, like I said, I mean, I think that sounds like it's a big step forward in terms of at least getting accurate reporting going forward. And I also think that it's important to try to think like, do you see any problems with the NIBR system now? Because I think one of the things that probably the public will not tolerate will be if you're saying that, you know, we've now moved into a much more accurate system, and then next year you're coming back and saying, next year, not you, but next year the department is coming back saying that, oh, well, you know, the reason why our stats aren't accurate is because the NIBR system is problematic. Do you see any problems with the NIBR system in terms of reporting?
Not at all.
Right.
The thing is, you're going to see a change because you're going from 7 part 1 crimes to about more than 50 crimes that are gathered in 2 different groups. So you're going to see a lot of different things. As far as accuracy, we've been reporting pretty good numbers and accurate numbers that we could tell. The problem is we were guided by those definitions. So, you know, we're making arrests, we're closing cases in that sense, but they couldn't be reported under the UCR because they didn't meet that title or definition. For example, sex assault cases, a lot of times witnesses are very uncooperative. They don't want to go through things. We could not remove that from that list because there were problems in reporting or the definition, so they stayed on as an open case. Robberies, the largest category is the larceny theft, which is one that, you know, happens a lot. We catch guys, if we catch people stealing after or in possession of the stolen property after the fact, it doesn't count. And then you have larceny theft under definition doesn't count fraud, doesn't count embezzlements, a lot of those common theft schemes. So it doesn't portray a really accurate picture of what's going on.
Under
the numbers are fairly accurate.
under the old system, under the UCR system, not the NIBR system.
NIBR should be a lot better, yes.
Good, good. And then, do you anticipate then, like, the report that's coming from the AG's office, will there be a big jump up in terms of clearance rates? You know, like, in other words, because you went from one system to another, then do you anticipate the department reporting better numbers for 2021 than what existed before? Like, we'll noticeably see an improvement because the system has changed?
I mean, you can look at the numbers in the chart I showed, how it increased the clearance.
Yeah, I mean,
rates.
yeah, right
But
there, I mean, that looks like a big jump, so, I know you can't promise it, I'm not at all trying to get you to promise anything. It's more just trying to know what we should be expecting as commissioners,
Again,
because we see a big jump here in murder, and so probably, likely, that same kind of jump will be existing with a bunch of other crimes across the board for the department.
Not necessarily. Remember, your bigger category crimes, theft, larceny, are still gonna be high numbers with a relatively low clearance rate because of definitions. But then it's gonna show other crimes that aren't shown in what's published now in the UCR.
And remember, like larcenies and whatnot, a lot of times there are no witnesses to any of these crimes. So the crimes are committed, and for the definition of larceny, it's $300. And for us, $300 is only a misdemeanor. It's not even a felony. So once again, that, you know, I mean, and so you're talking about a large number of cases with very few witnesses. So I don't want to say or, you know, commit that there's going to be a huge jump, because that's not going to change, especially in the areas of property crimes. So, and then the other thing is that I think that we need to keep in mind is that garbage in, garbage out, and of course that falls in our lap, because when we started looking into the closing rates and the clearance rate, we found that our detectives and our officers were not being trained appropriately to know what cases to close, what not to close, what criteria they use. And also to our reporting system, the one that we currently have is a little bit confusing. We're hoping because we're going to be switching over to our new CADS, well, we got our CADS already, but our new RMS system, hopefully in 2021. So that's going to further limit the garbage in, so that we can limit the garbage out that comes out, because the statistics are only as good as the input of the data as well. And that comes down to the officers and detectives who are inputting it. So it's going to be incumbent on us and the commanders of the divisions to make sure that they continue intense training and supervision of those people to make sure that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing and inputting what they're supposed to be inputting.
Right. There's an interesting nuance, especially with the large category burglary, larceny, theft. A lot of those cases, like the chief said, the $300, the misdemeanor cases, what we do is how we close the case on our end is by identifying the suspect. We know where he lives. We generally give them an opportunity to make a statement if they want. Those cases are referred over to the prosecutor, the victim witness kokua. On the felony, sometimes they're turned over to the prosecutor, and if they don't charge outright, it'll go grand jury or get charged at some time later. We cannot close those cases until an arrest is made under the UCR. So they kind of get lost in the system and float around. If the felonies come back with an arrest, say a grand jury warrant, the person is arrested. At the time of the booking, they go back to the original report, and then they can close it at that point. But the misdemeanors kind of get lost because they may have a penal summons issued for them. They're taken to court, and we don't know what happens with it necessarily unless they're convicted and returned to us for the booking process. So there's that little gray area in the reporting.
So, Chief and Deputy Chief, I think ideally, where, you know, I'm just one individual commissioner, but I think ideally I'd like to see the department to be able to get to is a place where these very long explanations go away. So in other words, this idea of garbage in, garbage out, I have literally heard that from the department every single year from 2006 to 2012 when I was the first deputy prosecutor, and then every single year from 2015 to 2018 when I was the state attorney general, over and over and over again. All I ever hear from the department is, the reason why you can't trust any of these numbers is because it's all just garbage in, garbage out. The definitions aren't right, our equipment isn't right, our technological concerns aren't right. And so what I thought I heard you say at the very beginning was that the NIBR system is gonna clean all this up. So I think what we don't wanna do is we don't wanna be going into 2021 and having and hearing this again when we're starting to ask about why are the numbers the way they are, and to start hearing, well, it's because the definitions aren't really correct. And so we have to know that if we're getting numbers that are put out, that it's not always going to be subject to a bunch of explanations, or else the state and the counties shouldn't report these numbers at all. They should just walk away from all of it.
Can't change the definition.
Right, the problem is, and I'm not, again, trust me, I'm not making an excuse. We're gonna report the numbers, however, we're guided, we can't change the definition. The federal government has said it, and that's what we have to follow. It's not subject to interpretation. We're trying to follow it to the letter and be honest and report it that way.
So Deputy Chief, I'm not asking you to change the federal definitions. That's not what I'm asking you to do. What I'm asking the department to do is to be able to accurately report what its clearance rate is for these different crimes. I think what's difficult is when the public reads these reports, then they're going to want to know, well, what's the reason for it? And if they're always hearing the system is wrong, it doesn't work, that's going to be a problem. That's why I was so encouraged at the very beginning when you said the NIBR system is going to address a lot of the concerns. If that's the case, that's great. That's fantastic if we get to a place where a lot of these concerns are addressed. But if we're here next year and we're hearing the same thing, that will be extremely frustrating.
Well, I can tell you from what you've seen, the change in the numbers, the difference in the clearance rate shows, and from UCR to NIBRs, I would expect that it would continue that way. But again, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you. We're going to report the numbers as best we can, as we always do it. Hopefully it works out that way. We got to follow the rules and the definition. And the numbers look better from what you can see, and across the board it's different. So I would expect it to continue that way.
I have a follow-up, just Commissioner Chin, just if I could just simplify it a little. And I think when we saw the 2019 annual report and we've seen the previous reports, I really like this last one only because it was very nicely laid out. But when we see the statistics with respect to the different crimes, whether it's murder, whether it's rape, whether it's theft, isn't it just possible if you're using your own numbers to add a column that says which ones were cleared, and then I mean, why can't it be that simple so either the public, of course the public can understand, and for us as a commission we can understand. And I don't know if that's oversimplifying things, but I think that's what Commissioner Chin was getting at, is because when we see this type of headline, it feeds off so much probably misinformation, but negativity towards the department and their ability to clear cases. So I think that's what we want to avoid, and I think the public deserves it, right? So just wanting to see if that would be an option, or is it oversimplifying?
It's oversimplified. Again, it's governed, we're still governed, it still comes on, the NIBR still comes under the UCR law, the Uniform Crime Reporting Act. And we have to follow that. So, I mean, there's no way to simplify it. The case is cleared the way they say it's cleared. And we look at it, it fits in with those categories I told you, and it's cleared. The definitions of the crimes, because we're going from offense-based to incident-based, will change. So you're going to see a fluctuation in those numbers. And I mean, hopefully it works out, because the numbers, when we ran them, we saw an increase in the clearance rates. We also have closing rates on top of that don't meet the clearance criteria, that actually is a bit higher.
Well, I've attempted to try to get my message across to you, so thank you. I don't want to take any more time and ask more questions. It's fine.
Thank you, Commissioner Okinaga.
Thank you. Thank you for the information, and I appreciate the passion with which Commissioner Chin brings his background and experience for sure. My question is a little bit different. From the 3 years of data that you have collected under NIBRS, have you seen any trends, or are you able to, identify any data reporting corrections that you've been able to convey to the field because you've seen numbers that just don't make sense? And I guess I know Chief is ultimately accountable for that, but what division specifically, or what, who of your command staff is responsible specifically for the NIBRS reporting?
Yeah, you know what, if I can ask Chief Mann, she's been leading up the property crime detail and kind of looking at all this, the closure and clearance rates. If I can ask her to answer that question a little bit more. She was at the random meeting yesterday pretty much, and she can tell you the difference with the divisions, who's in charge. Chief Mann, if you could, please.
Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Good afternoon. My camera is not working.
Thank you. We can hear you, Chief. Go ahead.
Okay, great. So yeah, I'm actually overseeing the property crimes. It's our former Burke theft zone details, which go across the department, across the 8 different districts. So we have one lieutenant, anywhere between 4 to 6 detectives assigned to handle the property crimes. So Burke thefts, UEMVs. We handle some forgeries, some FUCCs. It depends on some of the hours and whether it's not connected to the initial crime. But yeah, we are working on obviously addressing property crimes and also auto thefts, by the way. But the inputting, we've done a lot of training. There was some confusion on the inputting, and we do have the external reporting, which is, as Chief McCarthy said, the UCR, and then the internal, which is the workload report. That is more of an internal performance measure of our detectives. So there was a little confusion. Yes, we've been making changes. A lot, again, training. We do have a high turnover rate. We have been standardizing some operating procedures. So as the turnover rate happens, new people coming in have something they can refer to. It's not just a word of mouth or learning from their neighbors. We want to make sure it's accurate. Yes, yesterday we did have a meeting to discuss, again, simplifying the inputting and just even putting them on the same page. And people, just the change in the names, I think, will make a difference. We had in the past a caseload, our case disposition and a workload disposition where, again, I think it was confusing, where we need to clarify that the importance of UCR reporting. So now we have the UCR disposition and a workload status. So something that's simple. I think that when we talk to our supervisors, they have a better understanding, and also they understand the importance of being very accurate in our reporting. So that is for the property crimes divisions. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Chief McCarthy or Chief Ballard regarding clearance rates? Chief Ballard, just to follow up with Commissioner Broderick's request for the information, if you could get it to us, that would be helpful.
Okay.
I will
You may
take
have
care of
further
that.
questions. Thank you. Okay, great. Moving on our agenda, Chief Ballard, if you have an update on the COVID-19 overtime?
We just gave a general statement to Commissioner Gibson because it is under investigation, and so we won't be able to give out any particulars, but it'll probably be, right now we're just doing inquiries, and it's a lot of records that have to be compared, so it's going to be probably more than several months before there's any type of information that can be resolved.
Any questions? Commissioner Broderick?
Chief, tell me if this is inappropriate in terms of compromising the investigation. I don't think so, but let me know. What safeguards are going to be put in place to ensure that something like this doesn't happen again?
The safeguards is the responsibility is our supervisors. And so our supervisors are being held accountable because it's their responsibility to make sure that they track the overtime. We don't have any computer program or anything else that can do that, because by the time put it into our system, into the payroll system, it's also the payroll lag before we can get that information. So it's up to the supervisors, and that's one of the things that we are really going to be, and we have started already, is holding our supervisors accountable, not just the officers, but the supervisors as well. We are also even taking a look at going back, and changing, possible changing minimum requirements to become a supervisor. So we're looking at various ways, but the bottom line is that supervisor's responsibility for their officers, just like everything else, that, they're there and that's what their job is supposed to be doing.
Thank you.
Another question, Commissioner Perry?
Yeah, Chief, I was wondering if you could explain where this audit came from, what brought this about?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear
The audit that captured this information. What was the background behind that?
That's part of the investigation, so I really can't get into specifics. So it was something that caught our eye. We asked somebody to run some numbers, and we looked a little further, and we're like, oh, this is something that we need to look further into.
And some of the officers were reported to have worked something like 300 hours or something. Are you confident that they actually did the work? Whether they should have done the work or not is not what I'm asking about, but that they actually did spend those 300 hours or whatever it was?
That's all going to be part of the investigation. All the records are going to be compared, their work records, overtime records, everything, to confirm yay or nay.
Why does this take several months, did you say?
Because there's a large number of people who participated in this program, and we have to pull overtime cards, we have to pull work records, we have to do interviews of all these people. So it's a very, to make sure that the officers have a very thorough and fair investigation that's done, so that if any discipline is meted out, that we give them the due process that is required by collective bargaining agreement as well.
So do you intend to wait until all of the investigations are complete before you report any results or take any action?
Well, we'll take action as each case comes up. But as far as the overall, I can't tell you when we'll be able to get any information. It depends upon how far along the investigation, what it resolves. So I really can't answer that question at this time.
It just seems to me that this is an issue that is, it's very troubling, and I think we should be looking for answers more quickly than waiting several months. And I think that if we want to try and start to report results along the way, as opposed to waiting until the entire investigation is complete, I think that would be a preferable course of action.
I understand your concern, and we would like to do it as quickly as possible, but we also have to keep in mind the due processes as it belongs to the officers as well.
Thank you.
Just
Michelle,
clarify something. I just want to make sure I understood the question and the answer. So the audit that you're referring to, that was at the initiation of administration based on some numbers that look suspicious to you, right? That was administration initiated. Is that
Yeah.
Correct. And it wasn't a really in-depth audit per se. It was just a generic thing, and then some red flags came up, and we decided that we needed to do a deeper dive.
Chief, I had a question regarding other areas of overtime, whether it's special duty or other areas that officers perform OT. Is there any intent to review those hours and kind of take a bigger picture look to make sure that the directives and the policies are being followed?
They're already, like for special duty, there's a limited amount of hours that they are required to work. And we actually have a special duty section who takes care of that. So we have a group of people who actually, that's what their responsibility is, are a little different than and regular overtime, there is no, we don't have any specific limits as to, what they can or they cannot work, but, so, I mean, I'm not sure if that answered your question.
Thank you. Follow up, how has the officers responded to the suspension of the CET teams? Has patrol been able to sufficiently respond to either violations of governor's mandate of mask wearing or quarantine violators? What's it like out there from the field?
Well, once again, I mean, the officers are responding to because we kept the CET overtime or the CET program for our call center. And so the officers are responding out on the road. Once again, we are just advising mostly warnings, based on the fact that, basically the agreement seems to be that the citations being a misdemeanor is not something that anybody wants to follow through with. And we just don't see how issuing a citation to someone in the community knowing that nothing's going to be done with it. I mean, it just doesn't seem right. I mean, now we know that the prosecutors and the judicial side, want to go to a fine and not have these other ones, then for us to continue doing it seems to kind of not be the right path to go down.
Thank you. Follow-up question, I think, from other commissioners.
So, Chair and then fellow commissioners, is it okay if I ask, when you're ready, is it okay if I ask one more follow-up question on the closer rate, just because the chief is here?
Okay, yeah, maybe
but
if
whenever
can
you guys
follow.
are ready.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner
Sorry.
Okinaga. Thank you.
So I think we are really good at asking tough questions, and I really enjoy that dialogue. I just want to say thank you to Chief for bringing this in a very transparent manner to the public's attention and then dealing with it immediately, because if we're talking about policies and training and messages sent about what is appropriate behavior and what is not, to the extent that there was inappropriate behavior, this clearly sends a strong message, and I wanted to express my appreciation for that.
Thank you, Commissioner Okinaga. Any other follow-up with respect to COVID overtime enforcement teams? Thank you, and now we can bring it to Commissioner Chin's question on clearance.
Okay, Chair, thank you so much. And Chief and Deputy Chief, thanks for answering the questions. So I understand that the UCR system was very flawed, not consistent with our own criminal system. And so that's a big reason for why the numbers aren't as great as they would be. Totally accept that. And then I think we can also understand from the report that the NIBRS system should be an improvement, if not a great improvement. And so that'll be, but still not perfect. It still won't be perfect in terms of being able to completely match up to everything that the department does in Hawaii. Totally get that. So my question is this, is then how does the department measure itself? Like, how does the department know whether its clearance rate is improving or not improving? What does the department look to be able to tell itself that it's doing better than it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago?
Chief Mann covered it where we were doing the detective workloads. So we were closing cases that were outside the definition of the UCR, but they couldn't be reported on the UCR. So
Sure.
we had an idea of our detectives, the individual workload, the detail workloads, and how it fits in overall. But unfortunately, for one reason or another, they don't meet the definition of the UCR for closing, so we couldn't include them in those clearances. Chief Mann has been working with the different zones to try and standardize everybody, to change the computer system to allow for the lieutenants and the detectives to include that when they close their reports now under the new, even under the UCR now, but more so when we go to NIBRS. So we're hoping that the standardized training among everybody, the reporting. Now, the chief mentioned it, I think we're gonna switch to an RMS. The system we have now, the CRS, the crime reporting system, is a bit different. We're trying to make sure that we can maintain that when we make the changeover as well, because if not, that's another hurdle to jump, that one system doesn't talk to the other. So our IT division is working hard on it to make sure that that information can be captured.
Okay, sorry. What we can look at doing is that we can post our stats on our website, not UCR and not NIBRS. So we can post the closing stats, based on our definition of closing and our definitions here in Honolulu. So might make it a little bit simpler and easy. It won't line up to NIBRS, obviously, because of the difference, but we can take a look at doing something like that to make, so hopefully that may address some of your concerns as well.
Chief, thank you very much.
I think that would be very helpful, particularly if it had some historical information, so we can tell what are the trends that you're seeing within the department.
Thank you. Okay, hearing no more further questions on the clearance or COVID overtime. Chief, any additional information for the commissioners before we open it up to more questions for you?
No, that's it.
Okay, any other questions from commissioners? Chief, I just had one question with respect to the use of fireworks recently. There's been an uptick this past weekend. It seems like it was New Year's already. Just wondering if you guys have seen an uptick in complaints. What are the remedies on this? And I know it's the issue of seeing folks light it up, but with respect to the newest law, it allows evidence if someone was actually videotaped or caught lighting something. I don't know. Can you refresh our recollection, please?
Chief McCarthy, take care of that.
Yes, we're tracking, we have a different way of tracking the complaints this year. We're actually starting this week because, again, the IT division wrote a program just to capture and track the actual statistics from the officers. The law was changed last year. We're educating our officers again about the videotaping or the reporting of it by someone witnessing. So prior to that law being enacted, we had to actually witness the offense to take any action. Not necessarily true anymore. I do want to point out that there's one flaw in there that we're not going to do. Is the law allows for drones to take video of the fireworks violation and submit it to us. There's a problem with that, where it's involved in some legalities with search and seizure and the authentication of that video. So the drone portion we're not enforcing, but that doesn't stop people from reporting. So just for your information, last night we seized over 400 pounds of aerial fireworks and other fireworks from an individual. So, I mean, we're coming across, and that all started with a loud bang argument kind of complaint, and the officers were able to find that. We're looking at it, and we're going to start more aggressively trying to track down some of these things. We've been working with the federal authorities on some of these things as well. So we're trying to look at every different angle. The problem is, realistically, and I'm plagued by this at my own house, you're sitting down, relaxing, watching TV, eating, or whatever the fact, and you hear an explosion. Where did it come from? So unless the people are right there, and it's hard to tell neighbors to rat out your own neighbors because they live next to each other. They're afraid. So we're still dealing with that problem in a sense. So, but we're trying a whole bunch of different things.
Thank you. Appreciate that update. Thank you. Oh, we have another question.
Chief, there's been kind of a rash, I believe, of home burglaries, and I know that's because of the situation that certainly we're in. I was wondering, police comes to the home, comes to the house, takes a complete report, goes through all the detail. Is there a specific, standard procedure where they follow up again with the victim and talk about, the outcome, or they have any evidence, or when they come to some kind of conclusion, is there a follow-up procedure to a crime of the home?
There definitely is. In all of the home invasion cases, most of them are not classified as burglaries, but are upgraded to robberies because of the use of force, the kidnapping. That ups the ante on it, makes it a more serious crime. Every one are detectives. They should be if they're not, but as far as I know, every one is contacted because you get an initial statement and then you want to talk to them again. They may remember things that they were too upset to talk about at first. We always try to get, it's getting harder now because everybody wears masks. So what did he look like? Well, he had a mask on. That's becoming a standard statement of for a suspect now. But we go back and see if they can do a sketch, perhaps that, or if there's physical evidence. So the detectives reach out after the patrolmen are there. But on these home invasion robberies, detectives are actually responding to the scene to try and look and get a better assessment of what happened in the first place. So we pay more attention to those cases, definitely.
Thank you very much.
In comparison, sorry, just a follow-up to that. In comparison to the past, these home invasions, are they increasing, or is it just more brazen and bold? Is it different neighborhoods? I'm just wondering why we're seeing or hearing of them more so at this time. Is it COVID related? I think people are concerned. Any thoughts on that?
I'm just going to answer based on my limited experience. These things pop up and down. We have small bumps that happen here and there. Are they related? We're not sure yet. We always look into that in every case, but for some reason, towards the latter part of the year, we tend to get a bump in robberies or home invasions. That's just my personal observation, having been involved in it for years now. It's difficult to say, but we've had 4 home invasion robberies. But if you watch the news, you would think that it's an everyday occurrence. We've had 4 in the past, 2.5 months?
Thank you. I think that's it for questions. I'm looking around the room. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chief Ballard, Chief McCarthy.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on our agenda, approval of the minutes for the open session of November 4th, 2020.
I would move that we approve the minutes for the open session of November 4th, 2020.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Just noting the amendment that Erin distributed, noting deletion of Council Wong's name on page 1. Okay, with that, all those in favor by roll call, Chair votes aye, Vice Chair.
Aye.
Commissioner Chin.
Aye.
Commissioner Okinaga.
Aye.
Commissioner Perry.
Aye.
And Commissioner Broderick.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Moving on to the new business. Commissioner Perry, report on actions taken at the executive session of October 21, 2020.
At the executive session of October 21st, 2020, Commissioners approved the September 16th, 2020 executive session minutes. No cases were reviewed at that meeting. That's it. Right?
Thank you for your motion to approve the report. Is that a motion, Commissioner
I
Perry?
make a motion to approve the report.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All those in favor by roll call, or I'm sorry, any discussion before we take a vote? Seeing none, all those in favor vote aye by roll call. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair?
Aye.
Commissioner Okinaga?
Aye.
Commissioner Chin?
Aye.
Commissioner Broderick?
Aye.
And Commissioner Perry?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Moving on for consideration of request for legal counsel. Commissioner Chin.
Chair, thank you. There are 2 requests for legal counsel. The first one is from Sergeant Edward Namoka. I was able to review the allegations of the complaint as well as the recommendation memo that came from the city's corporation council. Essentially, the allegations in the complaint, and we don't make a determination right now as to the truth of those allegations, but the allegations are that in a arrest for meth trafficking, so basically selling meth, that Sergeant Namoka had fabricated evidence to justify the plaintiff's arrest, as well as used an unreliable informant. And then as a result of that, then the plaintiff got arrested with meth trafficking in the first degree. He was falsely imprisoned, his auto was seized and forfeited, and so he is seeking redress for all of that. The recommendation from the Corporation Counsel is that we do provide legal counsel, that Corporation Counsel has found that the acts for which Sergeant Namoka is being sued were done in the performance of his duty as a police officer. So with that recommendation, I'm gonna move that we grant legal counsel for Sergeant Namoka.
Out of an abundance of caution, given facts that I've learned since the last time we took this up, I'm gonna be recusing. Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
I second the motion.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Commissioner Chin's motion to approve legal counsel for Officer Edward Namoka, by roll call vote, Chair votes aye, Vice Chair,
Aye.
Commissioner Chin.
Aye.
Commissioner Perry,
Aye.
and Commissioner Broderick.
Aye.
Thank you, the motion carries. Moving on.
Chair, the second request for legal counsel comes from Officer Boyce Sugai. Again, I was able to read the allegations of the complaint as well as the recommendation from Corporation Counsel. This is the same lawsuit that is being brought by the same plaintiff, and so the allegations are similar, or really they're the same as what I described for Sergeant Namoka. And that is that Officer Boyce Sugai is accused of, or allegedly stated to have fabricated evidence to justify the plaintiff's arrest for meth trafficking in the first degree, and also that that Officer Sugai relied upon an unreliable informant to make that happen. And that's as a result, then the plaintiff suffered damages because of that. So Corporation Counsel has consistently also recommended that Officer Boyce Sugai's request for legal counsel be granted, and I'm going to make a motion at this time to agree with that recommendation.
Thank you.
Second the motion.
Same recusal.
Thank you very much. Recognizing Commissioner Okinaga's recusal, any discussion regarding the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, by roll call, Chair votes aye, Vice Chair,
Aye.
Commissioner Chin,
Aye.
Commissioner Perry,
Aye.
and Commissioner Broderick.
Aye.
Thank you, motion carries. We'll be informing both officers of their approval for request for legal counsel. Thank you very much. Moving on our agenda, under unfinished business, Chief of Police evaluation. We continue to engage the public and also Chief Ballard in her annual evaluation for 2020. The commission is formally gonna let Chief Ballard know about doing her own self-evaluation as we move into the formal evaluation process. And we welcome, again, the public's participation as it continues to be on our agenda as we move forward and into the next year. Any questions with respect to the evaluation? Seeing none, moving on. Discussion of response to Mr. O'Day concerning his public testimony on November 4th, 2020. This is in response to Mr. O'Day appearing before the commission for public testimony, expressing concern about a delay in the department's response to his request for mugshots in a timely manner. If you recall, he was requesting over 1,000 mugshots, or he was requesting mugshots as they were coming in. In response to Mr. O'Day, we drafted a letter that we would be distributing to all commissioners, acknowledging Mr. O'Day's response. Sorry, I have it somewhere. Here it is. And basically, if I could just quickly summarize, and I'll pass it to the left and to the right. We cite to Chapter 2-71 UIPA, addressing, sorry, Commissioner Broderick, his request for public documents. And we also cite to HAR sections 2-71-13 and 15 and Chapter 92F HRS with respect to reasonable amount of response time for any requests. And also note that Governor's proclamation, although it still encourages responses by agencies, does provide extended deadlines in a reasonable manner. So because we are not the holders of these records, we basically advise Mr. O'Day to continue to take it up with the department and acknowledge his request, and it notes that on his letter. Any questions or objections or comments? So this, if no objections or edits to the letter, will be going out to Mr. O'Day in response to his testimony on November 4th. Thank you very much. Okay, we're moving on. Executive Officers Report.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
As of November 30th, we have a total of 109 cases. Of the 109, 19 are pending. Of the 109, the cases referred to HPD Professional Standards Office was 31. Closed by public service report was 23. Administrative closed is 4, and withdrawn is 7. Breakdown by months. There are 3 that are pending since July. I'm personally working on those. Letters have been sent out to the 3 complainants and an explanation as to the delay. As for, well, that completes my investigation status. And as for the office and personnel report, I talked to HR today, and we're proceeding with the temporary position of the hiring of an investigator until the position is advertised, which should be soon.
Thank you. Any questions for Jim? Seeing none, thank you, Jim, for that report. Thank you. We're moving into the next agenda item, which would be to move into executive session. Commissioner Chen. If you're, or it's Commissioner Okinaga.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
The following agenda items will be reviewed in executive session pursuant to HRS 925A subsections 2, 4, 5, 6, and 8. To consider the hire, evaluation, dismissal, or discipline of an officer or employee, or charges brought against the officer or employee, where consideration of matters affecting privacy will be involved. To consult with its attorneys on questions and issues pertaining to the board's powers, duties, privileges, immunities, and liabilities. To investigate proceedings regarding criminal misconduct. To consider sensitive matters related to public safety or security. To deliberate or make a decision upon a matter that requires the consideration of information that must be kept confidential pursuant to state or federal law or court order. During this meeting, there may be discussion with the Chief of Police and her staff regarding internal strategies and sensitive criminal investigation matters relating to public safety that disclosure could significantly risk the circumvention of law and undermine the effectiveness of the public's protection by the police. I'd like to move us into executive session on these grounds, please.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, by roll call vote, all those in favor of moving into executive session? Chair votes aye. Vice Chair?
Aye.
Commissioner Okinaga?
Aye.
Commissioner Chin? Commissioner Perry?
Aye.
And Commissioner Broderick?
Aye.
Motion carries. We'll be moving into executive session. Thank you to members of the public who are joining us. We'll be signing off now and going into executive session. Our next meeting will be on December 16th at 2 o'clock. Thank you very much.